This cold, blank, almost frightening calm. An ice-cold aura, like she already knows something the rest of us do not. And then, out of nowhere, she detonates. She rips off 3 games in a row. She climbs to a 4-3 lead. The crowd starts to roar, because suddenly the impossible comeback is on, and the girl who beat the Giants looks like she is about to do it again. And then it slips away. So we are left with this knot that will not untie. A player good enough to dismantle the world number 2 cannot get past the world number 13. A player calm enough to stare down a comeback cannot quite finish it. The talent is obviously there. The nerve is obviously there. So what exactly is missing? Because something is. Something specific. There is one thing standing between Eala and that first final, and almost nobody is talking about what it actually is. It is not her age. It is not her head. It is not nerves. It is something far more concrete, hiding right there in the box score. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. By the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly what that missing piece is, and why it might be the only thing left between this 21-year-old and the very top of the sport. But to understand why she came up agonizingly short, you first have to understand exactly how far she had already come that week. Rewind 72 hours. A 21-year-old wild card from the Philippines, ranked 35th in the world, walks into the Berlin Open and starts knocking giants over like dominoes. And I need you to really get what wild card means here, because it changes everything. A wild card is not a player the tournament expects to do damage. It is a courtesy, a favor. The bracket lets you in, pencils you for an early exit, and moves on. Nobody in Berlin circled Eala's name. Nobody saw her as a threat. She was a name to be cleared out so the real contenders could get to work. She did not get the memo. Her first match was against Donna Vekic. Now Vekic is no pushover. She had just won the title at Queen's the week before, walking in red-hot, full of grass court confidence. Eala beat her anyway. Then came the one that made the tennis world look up. Elena Rybakina, the world number 2, a 2-time Grand Slam champion with one of the most violent serves in the entire sport. And Eala took her down in straight sets, 7-5, 6-4. When it was over, she was shaking. She walked off, grabbed a phone, and called her dad, and the two of them just started screaming down the line. "I am still shaking," she told the crowd. "I was shaking on match point too." That is the kind of moment that makes you fall in love with a player. The raw joy of it. The disbelief. And then she did not stop. 24 hours later, still riding that high, she walked back out and beat Elina Svitolina, the world number 8, 6-3, 6-4. 2 top 10 players in 2 nights. A wild card. From a country that had never produced a tennis star. Think about what was actually on the table now. This was her first ever semi-final at a WTA 500 event. One more win and she was in the final. On grass. The surface everyone said should expose a player like her. Her ranking was climbing in real time, all the way up to number 30 in the live standings. One single spot below her career high. Every door she had ever pushed against was swinging open at once. And the crowd felt it. Wherever Eala plays now, her fans show up in waves, turning a court in Germany into something that sounds like a home crowd transplanted halfway around the world. They could taste the final too. If you are feeling that pull right now, that thing where you suddenly care how this story ends for a player you maybe had not even heard of 10 minutes ago, that is exactly the moment to do one quick thing. Tell me in the comments who you are rooting for in this one, because the people who say it out loud are the ones who feel the next part the hardest, and trust me, the next part hits hard. So here is the setup. A girl on the most incredible run of her young life. 3 wins over quality opposition, 2 of them over top 10 monsters. An ice-cold confidence radiating off her. A first final 1 win away. Everything, and I mean everything, pointing toward a fairy tale ending. And standing on the other side of the net was Linda Noskova, the world number 13. On paper, the least scary opponent of the entire week. So when Eala walked out for that semi-final, with the final right there in front of her. The only question left was simple. Why did the wall go up now? The first set was brutal, and it was fast. Eala got broken once, then again, then a third time. 6-2, gone in a blink. The girl who had just spent a week making top 10 players look ordinary suddenly looked like she could not find a foothold anywhere on the court. And to make it stranger, the match had been interrupted by rain. The temperature had dropped, the rhythm was choppy. But none of that explained what we were watching. This was not a close set she lost on the margins. This was a player getting pushed around. So here is the first question that should be bugging you. How does someone who dismantled Rybakina, one of the biggest hitters in the sport, get washed off the court 6-2 by the world number 13? And before you chalk it up to one bad day, here is the detail that makes it worse. This was not the first time Noskova had done this to her. Go back to March. Indian Wells. These two had met before, and that match was not even competitive. Noskova won it 6-2, 6-love. Read that again. 6-love. A near double bagel. Eala won 2 games in an entire match. So this was not a fluke, not a one-off, not a bad bounce on a rainy night in Berlin. Against this specific player, Eala had now been beaten twice, and both times it was lopsided, which raises a darker question. Forget the rankings for a second. Why does this one opponent, ranked outside the top 10, own her when actual top 10 players do not? That should not be possible. Rankings are supposed to mean something. If you can beat the number 2 and the number 8, the number 13 is supposed to be easier, not harder. And yet here was Noskova twice, making Eala look like she did not belong on the same court. Now let me show you the numbers from Berlin, because this is where it goes from confusing to almost alarming. Noskova served 9 aces in that match. Eala served 2, 9-2. Noskova won almost 83% of the points behind her first serve. Eala won 52% behind hers. Sit with that gap. When Noskova landed a first serve, she basically won the point. When Eala landed hers, it was a coin flip, and the breakpoints tell the same story from the other direction. Noskova converted 5 of her 6 chances to break. Eala converted 2 of hers. One player was ruthless. The other was leaking games. So now stack it all up. The weapon that beat Rybakina was the return. Eala gets the ball back, neutralizes the serve, drags the giant into a rally, and wins the war of patience. That was the whole blueprint. That was the magic. But against Noskova, that blueprint seemed to short-circuit. Because here is the trap. If your opponent is serving 9 aces and winning 83% of first-serve points, your return cannot do its job. There is nothing to return. The ball is past you before the rally can even start. The sword that slayed Rybakina was suddenly swinging at empty air. And it gets worse, because the problem was not just on the return side. It was on Eala's own serve. She got broken 5 times in that match. 5. Her serve, the thing she sends across the net to start a point in her control, kept getting taken away from her. So she was losing the serve battle on both ends. She could not break Noskova reliably, and she could not hold her own. That is a nightmare scenario in tennis. When you cannot outserve someone and you cannot out-return them either, you run out of places to win the match. So look at where this leaves us. A player with the talent to beat the world number 2. A player calm enough to stare down a comeback without blinking. And yet, against the world number 13, twice now, completely stuck. The numbers say she was outgunned. The history says it was not an accident. The blueprint that worked all week said nothing. On paper, against this one player, Eala looked genuinely stuck. The weapon that toppled Rybakina suddenly looked useless. Everything pointed to a simple, deflating conclusion. Maybe this is just her ceiling. And then, in the second set, she did something that made no statistical sense at all. Here is what almost everyone got wrong about that loss. They watched the final score line, 6-2, 4-6, and they reached for the easy explanation. Too young, too inexperienced, cracked under the weight of her first big semifinal. The moment got too heavy, and the kid from the Philippines wilted. Clean story. Makes sense. Move on. Except it is wrong. And the second set is the proof. Watch it again. Eala is down a set. The match is slipping away. By every emotional metric, this is the exact moment a nervous 21-year-old folds. Instead, she steadies. That ice-cold look settles back over her face. And then she goes on the attack. She wins a game, then another, then a third. 3 games in a row, and suddenly she is up 4-3 in the second set. And Linda Noskova, who had been cruising, is rattled. Does that look like a player crushed by the moment to you? Because it does not to me. That is a player who, even with everything going wrong, even getting outserved and outgunned, found a way to claw all the way back into the match through sheer will. The nerve was never the problem. The aura is real. When the lights were brightest and the pressure was highest, she did not shrink. She bit back. So if it was not her head, what was it? Here is the twist, and once you see it, the whole match reorganizes itself in front of you. The thing that beat Eala was not in her mind. It was in her toolkit. It was one specific, physical, fixable piece of her game, her serve. Let me explain it with a simple picture. Think of Eala as a fighter who has built one truly elite weapon, a sword. That sword is her return. It is how she slays giants. She gets the ball back, again and again. She neutralizes the most feared serves in the world, and she drags the match into a rally where her brain and her hands take over. Against Rybakina, the sword cut clean through. But a sword is an attacking weapon. And in tennis, you do not just attack. Half the match, you are the one serving. Half the match, you need a shield. You need to hold your own service games to protect your side of the net so the other player never gets a free run at you. And Eala's shield is not finished yet. That is the whole thing. That is the entire mystery. Solved. Against most opponents, the sword is so good it does not matter that the shield is thin, because she just breaks them over and over and overwhelms them on the return. But Noskova is different. Noskova brought a serve that the sword could not touch. 9 aces. 83% of first serve points won. The giant slaying weapon swung and hit nothing but air. And on the other end, when Eala had to defend her own serve, the thin shield cracked. 5 breaks. 5 times her serve got taken away. So it was never a battle of nerve. It was a battle of serves. And that is the one battle Eala is not yet built to win against an elite server having a great day. And the beautiful part? This is the exact weakness the experts flagged months ago. Remember the verdict from the clay season? A former world #1 looked at her game and said it plainly. The serve needs to be better. Everyone heard it as criticism. It was actually a map. It was pointing at the precise piece that would one day stand between her and a final. And in Berlin, on that rainy night, the map turned out to be right. This is the moment I want to hear from you, because this completely flips the usual story. Most people walked away thinking Eala lost because she is not ready for the big moments. Do you see it differently now? Drop a comment and tell me. Did you buy the too young, too nervous take, or did you feel like something else was going on? I genuinely want to know if you saw the serve before I pointed at it. Because once you stop blaming her nerve and start looking at her serve, the numbers from the entire week stop being confusing. They start lining up into one clean, undeniable pattern. And the proof was hiding in plain sight the whole time. Look at the pattern across the entire week and watch how cleanly it snaps into place. Against Svitolina, the world #8, Eala broke serve 5 times. 5. She read the toss, stepped in, and took the serve away from a top 10 player over and over again. Against Rybakina, she hunted that second serve like a predator, refusing to let the biggest weapon in the match breathe. Her return, her court sense, her timing, her nerve, none of it ever cracked. Not once. All week. So the first piece of proof is simple. Everything on the return side of Eala's game is already elite. That is not the part that needs fixing. That is the part that is already beating top 10 players. Now hold that up against the Noskova match, and the gap jumps right out at you. Against Noskova, the breaks did not come. Not because her return got worse overnight, but because there was nothing to attack. Noskova served 9 aces and won nearly 83% of her first serve points. You cannot break what you cannot touch, and on the other end, Eala's own serve got broken 5 separate times. Her first serve points won sat at 52%, barely a coin flip, while Noskova was up at 83. That is not a small difference. That is the entire match living in one statistic. So connect it back to the question we opened with, the one that made no sense. How do you beat the world number 2 and the world number 8, then lose to the world number 13? Now you have the answer, and it is almost elegant. She beat Rybakina and Svitolina because she could break their serve. Her sword reached them. But she lost to Noskova because Noskova served too well to be broken, and Eala could not lean on her own serve to keep pace. It was never about how good the opponent was overall. It was about one single category. Whoever wins the serve battle wins the match. Against the Giants, Eala won it on the return. Against Noskova, she lost it on both ends. The rankings were a red herring the whole time. The serve was the real story. And here is the small detail that I think is the most hopeful thing in this entire match. The thing the dry recaps completely skip over. Go back to that second set surge. The 3 games in a row, up 4-3. Remember how she got there? One of those breaks came right after Noskova double faulted. Think about what that means. Even the player serving a near-flawless match, 9 aces, 83%, even she had one wobble, one crack in the armor. And the moment it appeared, Eala was right there, ice cold, ready to pounce. She did not need many openings. She needed one, and she took it instantly. That tells you everything about how close this actually was. Against a near-perfect serving performance, on a surface built to punish her, having already played 2 exhausting battles in the days before, Eala still got to within a single break of leveling the match. She did not get blown away in the second set. She went toe-to-toe. The only thing she was missing was a way to consistently win her own service games so that those rare openings actually counted. That is not a flaw in who she is. That is a flaw in one stroke. And strokes can be rebuilt. So sit with what we actually have here. A 21-year-old with a top 10 level return, a top 10 level competitive brain, and an ice-cold temperament that does not flinch in a semifinal. Sitting on top of one serve that has not quite caught up to the rest of her game yet. That is the whole picture. That is the entire diagnosis. Which means the thing standing between Eala and her first final is not a mountain. It is not her nerve, it is not her ceiling, it is not some mental block that haunts her forever. It is a single, fixable piece. And that changes everything about what comes next. So here is the answer to the riddle we started with. She did not lose because she was afraid of the moment. She did not lose because she is too young, or not ready, or missing some champion gene. She lost because her serve has not yet caught up to her return. That is it. That is the whole thing. And a serve, unlike fear, unlike nerve, unlike some imaginary mental ceiling, is something you can actually build. In the gym, on the practice court, rep after rep after rep. Think about how rare what she already has actually is. The hardest things to teach in tennis are the things you cannot coach into someone. Composure under pressure, the instinct to attack a second serve, the ice in the veins to stare down a comeback and rip off 3 straight games in a semi-final. You either have those or you do not, and Eala has all of them at 21 years old. The return is elite, the brain is elite, the aura is real. What is missing is the one piece that responds to work. The serve, the shield, the single stroke that turns a giant slayer into a champion. And that is why this loss is not the end of a story. It is a blueprint for the next chapter. She walked into Berlin, a wild card, and walked out, having found the exact edge of her current level. She did not get embarrassed. She did not crumble. She came within one break of dragging the world number 13 into a third set on a bad matchup, on tired legs, with the one weak link in her game fully exposed. That is not a player who hit her ceiling. That is a player who just got handed a map of the only thing left to fix. So circle back one last time to that ice-cold stare in the second set. Now you know what it really was. It was not the look of someone hiding fear. It was the look of someone who already understands she is close